Welcome back to the Practice Pulse, the podcast where we explore the people, ideas, and systems shaping the future of healthcare, wellness, and private practice growth. I'm your host, Nancy Margrit, founder of OptimaPro AI, where we help healthcare and wellness businesses scale smarter through practical AI systems and operational infrastructure, while still retaining the human touch that really makes care meaningful. Each week, we sit down with founders, clinicians, and innovators who are building practices that not only help people heal, but also rethink how care can be delivered more effectively and sustainably. Today's conversation is a particularly interesting one because we are talking about a space that has been gaining a lot of attention in mental health over the past decade: ketamine therapy for treatment-resistant depression and other mental health conditions. Joining me today is Nick Marino, owner of Allay Health Wellness in Palm Beach Gardens. Nick and his wife have been running their clinic for about 7 years. What makes their story especially compelling is that they come from very different sides of the medical world. Nick comes from the treatment and recovery space, while his wife comes from the emergency medical world. Together, they built a clinic focused not just on symptom management, but on helping people truly get better, often with the goal of reducing or even eliminating reliance on long-term psychiatric medications. Their approach combines ketamine infusion with psychotherapy, and the mission behind the clinic is rooted in education, patient empowerment, and helping people reach real breakthroughs in their mental health. Nick, welcome to the Practice Pulse. I'm really glad to have you here today.
Thank you, Nancy.
Yeah. So, Nick, I always like to start with the origin story because most practices that are doing something truly different usually start with someone noticing a gap that others weren't paying attention to. What originally led you and your wife to open a ketamine clinic, and what are you seeing in the mental health treatment world that made you feel like something needed to change?
Sure. Honestly, we just kept watching patients do everything right, like therapy, medication, lifestyle changes, and all that, and they still just were not getting better. And that's kind of like demoralizing to
Yeah.
kind of witness that pattern. And so my wife, who is a family nurse practitioner, she was seeing patients who had been on the same antidepressants for decades. And we kind of just sat there for a while and started thinking about there's better tools out there. And why isn't anyone putting these tools together and in a patient-centered way, and that was the big thing. So we actually decided to put our tools together. I was an operations person, she was the medical person, and we kind of put it together. And I don't know if it was like the entrepreneurial courage or just kind of a little crazy, but we kind of put our powers together and decided to open up a clinic that kind of focused more on the full mind, body, soul of a person, not just like looking for ways to actually help someone get better, not just put another Band-Aid on, I guess.
Right. That's wonderful. Anytime you can take a holistic approach to care, I think you're going to have just 10 times better results and then also longer lasting results. And it's awesome that you and your wife kind of merged your talents together to really create kind of this hero team that you've set up for the clinic. So, one of the things that I find fascinating about the mental health space, for many patients, the traditional model is very medication driven. And it can sometimes feel like long-term management is the medication itself, and there's no actual path toward recovery. The clinic that you built seems to approach things from a different angle. What specific problem were you hoping to solve for patients when you started Allay Health and Wellness?
Yeah, I guess in simple terms, it was the problem wasn't that good treatments didn't exist. It was the problem was that patients couldn't access them in like a structured, like coordinated way, I guess. And most ketamine providers at the time were almost operating like a boutique cash pay wellness studio, and it's very loose and very unstructured. And insurance at the time, forget about it. I mean, when we opened 8 years ago, Spravato wasn't even a thing. So we wanted to build something different and have a real like clinical process with like, proper evaluation, proper monitoring, clear path forward, not just come in, get an infusion, good luck. The real gap was the structure around the patient and actually spending time with the patient and getting to know what's worked for them in the past, what's currently not working, and getting a whole picture of the patient themselves, and then coming up with a plan that involves the patient and providing that kind of that care. So that's kind of where I guess we did it.
That's great. I'm a big fan of systems and creating ways that you can duplicate and repeat and create good outcomes for people. It's underrated in the business world, and to have that set up where you have these are the systems and this is how we find success with a person, but also being able to be adaptable and really bring the patient into the care model so that you're able to really tailor the plan to their needs. So that's an innovative way to look at mental health. So very
Yeah,
cool.
it's interesting that there's not like I guess one of the gaps is that people are in the medical field, they weren't spending time with getting to know the patient and really listening to what their needs are and getting like the full picture. Like we go in, people would go in other clinics and other places, not just in my space, but it's like you go into the doctor's office, you get 30 minutes with the doctor, and they're how they're going to model is based off what the insurance tells them they need to
Mhm.
do. And so you're going to get the quick fix, or not a quick fix, but here's the medication and then out the door so that I can bill the insurance. And to us, that model just it doesn't help people. They're not putting the patient at the forefront. That model's set up for the shareholders to make the money. And it's not a really,
Right.
it's counterproductive. I feel like.
Yeah. It's kind of like, race car drivers. It's like you look where you wanna go, not where you don't wanna go. So if we're constantly looking at where the money is, that's where our outcomes are gonna be, not where the patient health and wellness is gonna be. So that's an amazing approach, and it brings me to the next point, which something that you spoke about earlier when we had our first call that really stood out to me is you said that in some ways your clinic isn't even built around what most people would consider a good business model because you really don't have the retention. Your goal is to get people better so that they don't necessarily need to keep coming back to you. That's a pretty different philosophy from a lot of healthcare models. Can you talk a little bit about that philosophy and why your goal is to actually help people get well enough that they don't need ongoing treatments?
Sure. And I actually enjoy kind of talking about this because
Good.
it's kind of confusing, I guess, to some people as to why we would do this. But most models, like whether intentionally or not, create this like long-term like dependency of like treatment for patients, and the patient keeps coming back, the revenue keeps coming in. Nobody asks if that's actually good for the patient. And our philosophy is that treatment should be a bridge, like not a subscription
Hmm.
service, I guess. And we use ketamine and Spravato to kind of stabilize someone like neurologically, and then the goal is to do like the real work, therapy, lifestyle, community, so they can actually move on. And we kind of took a little bit of this model from the Europeans, and it's that, if you're depressed or anxious or whatever, and you go into a place over, I think it's in the UK, their first line of defense isn't putting you on a medication. It's getting you like a personal trainer for 3 days a week,
Mm.
getting your body moving. And so I always say the goal is to basically, it sounds silly, but our goal is to kind of like work ourselves out of a job, which does sound terrible for business, but it turns out it is doing the right thing by the patients, and we actually get more business because of it. So it's actually turned into like a unique business model, I guess, at the end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's bringing, I'm sure word of mouth spreads. I mean, I know with me, when I see any kind of massive transformation in a friend or colleague, it's noticeable to the people around you. So it creates those conversations, and people, also, I think coming back from depression, you want to reach out to the people that you see that are you 2 years ago. And so it's like, hey, I did this thing, can really help you. So it is a good business model in that respect. But I appreciate the fact that you're looking at it as less of a subscription and more of a bridge to overall wellness. So let's dig into the treatment model itself because ketamine therapy has gained a lot of visibility recently, but many people still don't fully understand how it works or how it's used in a clinical setting. For someone who may have heard about ketamine therapy but doesn't really understand it, can you walk us through what a typical treatment process looks like at your clinic?
Yeah, sure. And to me, I think the treatment process starts like before the patient even steps foot like into the clinic. We capture, call it like a lead, and then we verify the insurance and do a like almost a full evaluation to make sure they're actually like a good candidate. And not everyone is, and so we are upfront about that. And then we also kind of lay out a little bit as to like what the experience is like, and kind of make sure that this is something they want to do. Because doing this for a while, we realized like not everyone wants to work on themselves. Like this is like it can be scary, it can
Hmm.
be intense, and you know it's just kind of a whole different thing, and people have been struggling with certain issues for years. So, and sometimes they identify with those issues, and they do not want to get better. And so after that, it kind of depends on the treatment, whether it's with Spravato, which is FDA approved, and patients come in and are enrolled, and they like there's a whole process of like the REMS program, where they take the medication in the clinic, and we observe them for 2 hours. And during that 2 hours, they usually sit there, listen to some music. Sometimes they can meet with we have a licensed clinician on staff that can sometimes do some integration work. I wouldn't call it like the typical therapy, but it is like some more of like a coaching and integrative type of work.
Hmm.
With the IV ketamine, it is a little more flexible in the fact like that we don't have all these regulations around it, but it is the same principle, because it is like we do have to have it structured and monitored and documented, and everything is a process. It's if it's not a process, it's to me it's you can't scale it, and it's not safe. So
Right.
we work very hard at making sure that there's this process. But again, even that typical treatment process really does. I mean, it starts as soon as we're like making contact with the potential lead, and kind of getting a sense as to where they currently are, where they've been, and then where they want to go. And that kind of helps dictate like what direction we kind of push them to, I guess.
That's great. It's awesome that you're starting off with the patient first. Again, diving into what their needs, what their outcomes are. And then I really appreciate the fact that you brought up it's IV. So I'm assuming you can kind of toggle depending on how things are going and really tailor that to the experience in real time, which makes an even better patient experience, I would think. Um, One thing I find interesting is that your model isn't just about the infusion itself. It's about combining the medical treatment with psychotherapy and integration. So that coaching that you were talking about, it seems like a combination where a lot of real breakthroughs come out. How does psychotherapy fit into the treatment process, and why is that integration so important for the outcomes that they're trying to achieve?
Sure. That's a great question. Super important. And ketamine without therapy is like renovating a house, but leaving all the furniture in storage, basically. And it's like
Yeah.
how I would kind of the analogy we use. The medication itself creates like this neurological window, like increasing like plasticity, reducing like your default mode network activity, where like the brain is generally more open to change. Like we always try and get people to start doing like even before they come in, start even trying to like meditate for 5 minutes a day, nothing crazy, or go for a 10-minute walk in the evening, and maybe do like a 10-minute like stretching routine before you come in, for a couple of days before you come in. Because once you start, your brain becomes a little more open to solidifying those habits and incorporating
Hmm.
those changes. And then the therapy is what helps the patients actually process and integrate like the experience. And like without that, the effects it's almost like the effects will just be shorter lived. And you don't really start seeing the lasting change if you're not integrating it. We treat the two as like inseparable. The medication opens the door, and the therapy is what like allows them to walk through it, I guess. And it does. It is so neat to see people's who would have all these like negative self-talk or bad habits really quickly start integrating like these new habits and these new skills, and they do so in a way that I guess to first for a habit to like solidify, or for a habit to become a habit, it takes, X amount of times. Well, with ketamine therapy, it's so much faster. It's like, instead of it being like 400 times before it becomes a habit, it's almost like 7 times, and it's now
Right.
solidified. And so that's really neat to see. And I think without the therapy behind it, and that the support around the patient, I think you leave them open in a way where they won't get better if you don't do it. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
that simple.
I love that. Yeah, to me, it's kind of like the brain has this neuroplasticity, and there's a lot more research coming out on how, just 10, 15 years ago, we didn't have any understanding of neuroplasticity on the level that we have now. But it sounds to me like ketamine is almost like helping you create this situation where you're working with fresh clay as opposed to half baked clay that you're trying to kind of mold into what you want it to be. Ketamine allows you to make it a little easier. So let's get to our outcomes a little faster in conjunction with the therapy and the molding. That's
Oh
awesome.
yeah, that's a great analogy. Actually,
Yeah,
it's
that's a
awesome.
powerful duo, when you have the ketamine with the therapy. I think that's awesome. Let's see. Another thing you talked a little bit earlier about, and it came up in our original conversation around ketamine therapy, is the pharmaceutical version called Spravato. It's the only version currently covered by insurance, but it's also a slightly different compound than traditional ketamine. Can you explain the differences between traditional ketamine treatments and something like Spravato and why patients might experience those options differently?
Sure. I guess in simple form, it's IV ketamine has been around much longer in clinical settings, and it's more flexible on dosing. It works faster in many cases, and a lot of providers have been doing it for years. The trade-off, and I'll go deeper into it in a minute, but the big trade-off is that it's almost always like cash pay. Insurance doesn't really cover it. And then when it comes to Spravato, it is FDA approved. It's S-ketamine, and it's a nasal spray. It's newer, follows a very strict monitoring protocol. But what's different about it is it doesn't have the racemic isomer in it. So you're just getting the one part of the ketamine, which you do get results, and it is like great results. And this is like a great tool to bridge that gap of people who can't afford it. And so the fact that insurance now covers it, I mean, that is a huge help for people. And the one thing with it too, with this Spravato, which I think is a positive, is that they really allow you to get the number of treatments. Like you're not just coming in getting like two or three, you're getting a full on, like there's an induction series of about 8. And then from there, you're then able to come in about once a month, sometimes even twice a month for, an extended period of time. And again, it's not the goal is to keep people on these medications, but it's sometimes people do need some like a booster once a month or have
Right.
that instead of just going back to their old medication and taking it daily. So again, like the trade-off is like, whoa, I can do this once a month as opposed to taking a pill every day. So there's a lot of value to it. The other thing though, the thing that I will say with Spravato, where it becomes it's a little bit annoying, I guess, on the side where like if you came in and you have like a cold or any type of like sinus infection or anything like
Hmm.
that, you're not going to get the full medication.
Hmm.
And it also is going in the nose, so you're getting about like 50% of the medication, as opposed to like when you do IV, you're getting like 90 to 100% of the medication.
Right.
And the IV allows you to kind of tailor it to like you can slow it down, you can stop it. Once you do the Spravato, like you're kind of like you're going, and so there's no way to really slow it down or stop it. Did that
Okay.
answer the question?
That answered the question perfectly. Yeah, I can see why someone would, if they had the means, want to do the cash pay version because it sounds like it's a lot more flexible and a little more effective long term as well. And in the short term, if you have a sinus infection or
Yeah.
allergies, like everyone in the Ohio Valley
Yeah,
here where I live
right.
has.
Yeah,
Sorry, you live in Kentucky, you can't use this.
yeah, right. That's funny.
So, without sharing anything super identifiable, I don't want you to go into specifics in terms of names or anything like that, but I'd love to hear a little bit about the kinds of transformations that you're seeing in your clinic. Is there a type of patient story or breakthrough through moment that really captures the impact that this treatment can have?
Yeah, sure. I can give you something that we've seen, and it's very common, and it's interesting. But I would say the age range between 25 and 35, you have these young men and women who come in who have been kind of not sure what to do with their life. They're still at their parents' house and they want to be kind of free. And they come in and they have like, and you've probably seen these people before too, like they have their sweater on, they have their hoodie up, and it's like 100 degrees in Florida. It's like, what are you doing? And you can just tell they don't want to like have any of this like social interaction, or they're kind of just, I don't know, anxious to the whole works. By the time they're done with their first infusion or Spravato treatment, you can feel like a weight has been lifted from them. You can see the transformation in their face to the point of like, oh my God, that's what you look like. And that's kind of neat. Like, oh my
Wow.
God, you're smiling. That's amazing. And so to me, that's like, and that's like common. Like I'm bringing that up because that is something like we commonly see. And then one of the, I'll do one more that is really neat and specific. So when we first started, we had someone come in and they were in their mid 60s. They were been on opiates and other medications for about 30 years and hadn't smiled in probably 30 years and didn't do any physical activity or anything. Comes in and did a series of 6 infusions. And by the time they were done, they ended up running, or I guess walking in a marathon.
Oh,
And
wow.
that was like a huge deal. Like this is like 8 years ago, 7 years ago when we
Yeah.
first started. And like this person is still doing those type of things. And it's like really, it's amazing to me that what the experience was for them is still like translating into today and still like partaking and like being physical and all those stuff. And so to me, it's just so awesome to see those type of things. Like it's kind of like bizarre because, you know, you think you go to the doctor, they put you on all these medications and you think you're going to feel better, and none of that worked. And it
Yeah.
wasn't until they had an experience and we're able to integrate that experience before they could start feeling better. And so it's a big one. That's been really neat to see. And I can also do one more if you want,
Yeah, go
because
for it.
I was just
Tell us
thinking about
more.
it. Yeah. So there, and we've treated these type of patients quite a bit too, but they'll come in and they'll be on benzodiazepines. So they'll be on like Xanax, or Azepam or Ativan or whatever it is. And the doctor that put them on that like never explained to them that they could get addicted and that it would be a hassle to get off. And that's very confusing to me. And I'm not
Yeah.
trying to bash other doctors or providers. That's not what I'm just saying. Like that was news to me. I would have thought they would have communicated that. But we had this person come in, been on them for about 10 years. And it took a while, but it took 2 years worth of like treatments. And it's not treatments like every day or treatments like, even it was like once every month to a certain
Right.
point. But they ended up getting off all their benzos, had their whole life back, and like able to be there for their family again, and wasn't stuck in this like negative thinking and anxiety trap and all that stuff that like benzos can kind of do to you. So it was really neat because from that also helped us set up a protocol to help other people who are, I guess, addicted to benzos or struggling to get off
Hmm.
them, started coming in. And we have a really neat protocol for that. And it was really powerful to see. And I really like talking about that because I think that's neat.
That's very awesome. That's a strong, all three of those are very strong stories when it comes to what ketamine therapy can do for you, and especially to what your clinic is doing, because it sounds like you're really tailoring the experience based on those specific outcomes and really staying focused on the holistic approach with each individual. And I can only imagine how rewarding and fulfilling it is to really see that you're so positively affecting the trajectory of these people's lives, and able to see that shift 10 years later. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's neat.
Kudos to you. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
thanks.
let's shift gears a little bit since we're on a high. Let's shift back to business. Let's take it down a
Yeah,
notch.
yeah,
um,
right.
so let's talk a little bit about the operational side of running a clinic like this, because our audience includes a lot of founders and practice owners who are building healthcare businesses themselves. When you first started the clinic, you mentioned things were a bit less structured operationally, and some of that comes as you meet different types of patients. Like you're talking about the different systems that you came up for specific outcomes or people that had specific addictions or problems that they were dealing with. But looking back, what are some of the operational or organizational challenges that you faced early on in the years of building this clinic?
Yeah, that's a good question. Could probably go a lot of different ways on this. And in regards to the clinical side of things, I will say that my wife and her medical team really had that covered. Like coming from the ER background and integrating those type of policies and procedures and those systems, like felt very confident into how we were going to treat people in the safety side of things.
Mm.
The operational side was a different experience. Like there were some tough nights.
Yeah.
Building like intake workflows from scratch, figuring out compliance documentation, hiring the right people who had never worked in this type of specific like treatment model before. Healthcare operations they're really unforgiving. I mean, 1 week leak in that process and the whole patient experience can like fall apart. And then the patients don't know why, like the patients then are affected by that and they just know something is off. They can like feel it in the practice, especially when they're in like an altered space. They can just tell things are off and not are unorganized. And
Right.
I guess the real lesson we learned was that you can have the best clinical team in the world and still fail operationally. And to me, systems matter as much as the skills. And the goal has always been to try and create systems that are are simple but structured in a way that you could have just someone come in off the street and basically help like do it. Like that's how you want it, like almost laid out in such a simple, easy way. But it it is it is something that's constantly a challenge. And with all the new tools and things coming out, I mean, we're still like updating them. Like our systems and our like the SOPs. I mean, it's just a constant tweaking, and that's to me something that's kind of my background, and I love looking at that and developing that. But that to me that's just as important as the clinical skills.
I agree 100%. I'm a big fan of systems. I'm constantly like, do we
Yeah,
have an SOP for that?
yeah, right.
I feel that in my soul. So the systems are great. I'm loving this. You also mentioned that about 2 years ago, you really started tightening up your systems and processes, which allows you to begin offering insurance as well. That is a major operational shift for most clinics. What kind of changes did you have to make on the operational side to support insurance billing and a more structured workflow when it comes to that?
Yeah. Well, fortunately for us, we had a lot of good things in place. However, the insurance companies and the REMS program I was talking about, they require things to be done their way. And you have to be very like specific, and then they'll audit you like once a year or sometimes, or they can just come in unannounced. So there's just a number of different rules and different infrastructure that we kind of had to be very mindful of. And we had to build a prior authorization like workflow where prior authorization, I'm sure everyone knows it, but it's just the way to uh, basically get approved by the insurance company for the Spravato for the treatments. And then we had to build like documentation standards and billing processes, and everything had to be like set in a structured and like defensible type of way. And here's the thing most people don't realize: insurance doesn't just want you to do the treatment, they want you to prove you did it correctly every time in writing. So we have to build like a full on like intake to treatment pipeline. Like leads come in, insurance gets verified, consultation happens, treatment plan gets documented, care gets delivered, and then notes get filed and step by step. And so it's just this like whole system of just like, yeah, we're working through our system every time. And it's funny because it's not a very like exciting or like, I don't know,
Yeah.
romanticizing of the business, but it's to me like it's the reason that we get to stay in business.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. I get pretty excited about systems and workflows.
Yeah, me too. Me
But
too.
maybe we're the anomaly. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to have those workflows in place. It's like it's like a checklist on steroids, you know? It's like, here we
Oh
go. We're
yeah.
going through it. But yeah, very cool. Again with the system. So something else that really caught my attention that I thought was really cool and kind of unique is that you've been building a lot of your own AI and automation tools behind the scenes, including things like chatbots on your website. Like what that's not something most clinicians are experimenting with yet. I think we're going to get there and we are getting there faster and faster. But how are you currently using technology or AI tools to support the clinic? And what role do you think automation can play in the private healthcare practices moving forward?
Um, my first thing to start off with that is it has obviously for what we do, and not for everything, but for a lot of things. If you're doing any kind of like patient information or PHI stuff, you want it to be in a secured HIPAA type of ecosystem. Like you don't want to just put
Hmm.
in patient's information. You can't just do that in the cloud or ChatGPT. I mean, unless you have the enterprise versions of those things. So there's a program called like Intelligent that provides this like secure ecosystem that allows us to work within other learning language models within it. And we can put actual client information in there because it is HIPAA compliant. And to me, like when using like the AI tools specifically like for clinic operations, like lead management and like intake automation and prior auth support and all the different like patient tracking, like to me those things like they eat up hours of time. Like it's
Hmm.
insane. And so like you now have staff that are, for each patient that comes in, they're spending like 3 hours on like one patient, and that doesn't make sense economically. And what I try and do is try to set it up in a way. It's not about like replacing any of the clinical staff, but it's actually like going to replace the 3 hours that my nursing or my admin team were going to spend with the patient. And it's now done instead of 3 hours. Like I like the 7 minutes. Like that's as long as we should be spending time with like doing admin work for the patient. So then
Hmm.
my nursing team, medical team can actually spend time with the patient and provide like real care instead of, all right, we got to get them out the door so we can like input this note and do this and do this. And so for us, it's really been a way to help. Everything's built around like we talked about at the beginning, everything's built around the patient. It's patient centered focus. So everything
Hmm.
and all of our tools are around like that. So like we do not want the clinical team or admin team having to spend too much time doing the busy work when we can set up tools that allows us to like, okay, like not have to do it, and it's even done better.
Right.
And so then we also, yes, we do use the chatbots and things like that so patients can ask, frequently asked questions. And I'm sure every practice deals with this. You get, the nervous Nelly clients or patients that have questions all the time, call in all the time and want this or that. And now they can just access it by, talking to a chatbot that kind of has our whole like knowledge source and knowledge base set up, and in a secure
Hmm.
system. So yeah, I mean, it's to me, that's probably going to be one of the main reasons why like we are able to stay open and keep operating because we can keep our expenses down because of that. And there's a lot of value to that.
That's great. Yeah, I that speaks at a very deep level to me. When I first started Optima Pro AI, my main focus was to make sure that we are using AI in such a way as not to reduce the staff, but to make the staff more effective and
Yeah.
be able to actually spend more time with the client. Because when you do that, you're really able to better serve your client or patient. So I think that's a very high standard that you have, and I'm glad that you're setting that kind of standard for your clinic and for really for the industry. Because like you said, it allows you to operate in such a way that you're able to stay open, and
Hmm.
we all need that right now.
Yeah.
So very cool. Okay. So for other founders that may be interested in healthcare clinics or specialized treatment centers, what operational lessons would you share with someone who's thinking about opening a clinic in a specialized treatment space similar to this?
Sure. I guess one thing for sure is like your clinical skills will not save you from your operational problems. Build your systems as seriously as you build your like clinical protocols. I mean, that's step one. And then I guess I would say document everything before you need it, not after your first audit or whatever, the insurance company. Like, you don't want to do that stuff after the fact. You want to do it before. And three, don't wait until you're scaling to get organized. Scaling and growing, I'm in the middle of helping a place grow now, and scaling just amplifies what's already there. So if your intake process is a mess at like just getting 10 patients in a week, it's a disaster at 50, or
Mm-hmm.
over 10. Like, so again, the simple, I guess, simple advice is like the SOPs and like workflows and accountability, and the infrastructure is what actually lets you help more people. So build it
Right.
that's just my advice.
That's great. That's really good advice. It brings me to another point though that I did want to touch on. So you mentioned in our last call that you're helping some businesses, like you just stated, that are trying to scale or get to a level kind of that you're out at. Tell us a little bit more about that. Like who's your ideal client? What are they looking for, and kind of what do you provide for them?
Sure. So yeah, and actually currently right now I'm helping another ketamine clinic, and it's also does a TMS down in Delray Beach, Florida. And yeah, and the ideal client on that consulting side is someone that's wanting to open up a clinic or has a clinic open and is struggling getting it off the ground, and may or may not realize all the different like intricacies of like opening up a practice. Like, and what I mean by that is understanding from like the marketing to getting like leads into the door to having the back end office stuff set up in an operational and organized way for billing, and then creating the KPIs and the SOPs for the staff, and really laying out the job description. And I guess I would be someone that would help kind of organize it and set that up in a way that someone else could kind of come in and manage the whole ship if they wanted to, and do so in a organized, systematic approach. And currently tend to focus more on the ketamine and psychiatric TMS side of things. That's just what's been people are trying to get into the space, and so that's been like fortunate for me. And I'm also fortunate because my wife and we like to keep our clinic the way it is. It's small and it's simple, and now we can go and I make the joke, but it's like I get to go play with other people's money, and I
Yeah.
don't have to like worry about my place. But yes, this is not an easy business to run with all the there's probably at least one or two fires every day with something happening. And so the more prepared you can be for that, it's the better. And I that's kind of where I fit in, and I kind of offer my skills, because definitely seen a lot in the past 8 years of doing that.
I can only imagine. And those systems that you've got in place are like having the sprinkler system for the fires that start up. So you're
Yeah.
ready to, all right, we were prepared for this, so let's go. That's very cool though. I'm excited for you on that front, because I do feel like you have such a strong clinic in the systems that you've built, and the duality of your wife's experience and how she contributes, and then how your experience and how you're contributing, but be able to marry those two and then provide that guidance to new or scaling clinics so that they're really able to do it
Mm.
the right way and scale in the right way is extremely powerful. So, mental health treatment is evolving rapidly right now between psychedelic research, new pharmaceutical developments, and integration of technology into healthcare delivery. Looking ahead 3 to 5 years, what changes do you think are coming to the mental health treatment space? And what should practitioners or clinic owners be paying attention to right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the interventional psychiatry is definitely going to be going like mainstream, and ketamine TMS, and soon, like probably very soon, potentially like other psychedelic assisted like therapies. And in some states, we're already seeing that. And then this is kind of we're in like the early, like just the beginning of like a major shift in how mental health gets treated. I think it, and it's hard because like I think about it and I've been like researching a lot of stuff myself, and it's going to be interesting how people will be able to afford it, these types of services. And what I mean is when you look at what the like MDMA protocols are, or some of the psilocybin protocols are, there's this like you need to have a lot of like medical staff and a whole thing of like set up, and it can be very expensive. But I do think the clinics that are going to be the ones that like combine like very strong like clinical outcomes with like strong operational infrastructure and like keeping track of data,
Mm-hmm.
automation, like efficient like intake process and like good billing systems, like those are going to be the ones that separate like yeah, those practices are going to be the ones that succeed. And the AI layer, I think the AI layer is probably even more important than the actual like treatments that are going to become accessible. It's going to be a big game changer. And it's not that AI is replacing the clinicians, right? But it's that you're going to have someone that's like manning the machines to some degree
Mm-hmm.
at your practice, and they're going to be like that one, not maybe one or two people that are just able to kind of like make fine tune the AI models or the things or the systems. But that's going to allow for clinics not to have to spend so much money on overhead with staffing, and they're going to be able to focus more on the care. My thinking is focusing more on not necessarily all the different treatments and all that stuff. I mean, that's important too, but it's the AI systems that are coming out and how to use them for your practice. I think it's going to be a game changer.
I agree 100%. I think AI, and I hope it stays this way, but I think AI is here to amplify human talents and human abilities, not to replace them. So I think that's great. All right, we're gonna do a lightning round. This is new to you. You didn't know this was gonna happen. Are you
Oh,
ready?
yeah, I hope so.
It's a new
Yeah.
thing I'm trying, and I forgot to send you the
Yeah.
questions to this. So, are
Oh,
you
you're
ready?
good. You're good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I'm
It's only
ready.
4 questions, and they're
You're
very
good.
easy. So, quick, short answers. What's one myth about ketamine therapy that you'd like to eliminate forever?
That it's not scary. It's not scary in that it is a powerful tool for and a way for people to get better. It's not just some horse tranquilizer or some big scary word. It's a really unique and awesome tool.
Awesome. Okay, great. What habit keeps you steady when stakes are high? It can be a personal habit or a business habit.
So I have a thing where I mean, I have to do this. I have to wake, I mean, I wake up around 5:15, 5:30, and the is making sure I kind of do my like daily like reflection, devotional, write in a journal for a few minutes, and then do a mini like workout thing. And that to me is if I'm not doing that consistently, I'm off. And that
Mm,
affects like every aspect of my life.
awesome. Okay, what gives you the most hope right now?
Gives me the most hope, that people are starting to see these therapies and treatments as a way to as a first line defense, and that has been really neat to see.
Very cool. And then last one, where can listeners follow your work and learn more about Allay?
Well, I guess on our website we do have like a whole resource page, www.allayhealthwellness.com, and we do blogs, and we do have some videos out there. But yeah.
Nick, this has been a fascinating conversation. I really appreciate the work that you and your wife are doing at Allay Health Wellness and the perspective that you bring to mental health treatment, especially the focus on helping people actually get better and not just manage symptoms indefinitely. For anyone listening who wants to learn more about your clinic or connect with you, we will include those in the show notes and make sure that you have that information. I thank you again for joining us today. And to everyone listening, thank you for tuning into the Practice Pulse. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to follow the podcast, share this episode with someone who might benefit from it, and stay connected as we continue exploring the people and systems shaping the future of healthcare and wellness. Because at the end of the day, innovation creates possibility, but it is implementation that turns it into growth. We'll see you next time.